Welcome back to Parents Read the Darndest Things.
Yay!
It's great to be here. Great to see you guys, I guess. Great for you to see us.
Or hear us.
Or hear us. I'm Kayla. I am with CPL Adult Services.
I'm Lane and I'm with CPL Children's.
Today we're going to talk about A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas.
Woo, buddy, are we?
We are mass trash. As is most of our Discord, and our group readers here at Parents Read the Darndest Things, so go off.
And we will be going off.
We will be going off. We had a lot of thoughts here.
A lot of thoughts.
This was highly anticipated for me. P.S. I emailed Barnes & Noble about my signed copy.
Good. Okay, let's start here because this is where our journey truly begins. I don't read books. I listen to audio, so I got the audiobook. Meanwhile,
I buy books. I like to have the physical books. I'll always e-read. Always, always, always. But if I like it enough, I'll buy it. And since I'm mass trash and I liked ACOTAR, I pre-ordered in September the signed copy of the Barnes & Noble Special Edition of this book. As soon as it came out, I gave it a couple days and I was like, okay, they got to get it together, there's COVID and everything, and my sister got her book and she got the regular edition, and I was like, okay, and I went up there and they were like, oh, if you pre-ordered it but wanted it in store, we don't communicate with you, you just get a call when you're supposed to get it. And I was like, that's trash, okay. Then 2 weeks later I went back and they were like, yeah, no updates. I went back last week and they were like, oh, yeah, it's probably going to go to vendor canceled.
What?
And I was like, why?
Why?
And they were like, oh, the signed copies never come to the stores. Your best bet is to go online and just see if they have any copies left for you to buy. And I was like, why would they have copies left for me to buy? It was a pre-order. You can't get it anywhere anymore. I dug everywhere. I looked at indie bookstores.
Did they charge you?
Yeah, I'm still in charge. And I'm just waiting to see if I get it or if it goes into canceled. And so then I emailed the customer service because in store it was just not helpful. And I was like, it's not her fault. She doesn't control these things. She's just giving me the information she knows. But then I emailed them and they're like, hey, do you have a confirmation number? And I was like, no, because I ordered it in store and they didn't give it to me. And they were just like, oh, talk to the people in the store. And I was like,
wow, yeah.
So I bought the ebook because I was just tired of all these shenanigans.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, I started it last night and now I'm on page 600 and something.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, well. Yeah.
But I know the gist of what happens anyway, so.
We'll be talking about some spoilers. So from here
Lots
on
of
out.
feelings. I'm kind of not that mad now that I didn't get the signed copy because of my feelings about the book. But I'm mad at how it happened.
Okay, and I gotta say, I read this one and I had been anticipating a few books for 2021.
Mm-hmm.
From Blood and Ash. And I'm just...
That's next month.
I'm dead. And Chain of Iron.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the King of Scars duology is finishing up, and that has been my favorite book, of the past few years. And this one.
Yeah.
So these are my four, and they're releasing back to back.
They are, yeah.
So I read A Court of Silver Flames, and then I jumped straight into Chain of Iron, and let me tell you how much I wish we were talking about Chain of Iron.
That's so disappointing.
It's so disappointing because I thought A Court of Silver Flames would be it because I love Nesta so much, and I was super excited to see about this. And I gotta say, I was overall kind of disappointed. I have a lot of feelings about it, and some of them are fine. Parts of it were fine, but most of it I was like, I did not like this.
Yeah.
And I'm just disappointed in a lot of ways. So my sister and I co-read this, and my sister is a sweeter person than I am, and she was just like, I loved it. This is lovely. I just love everything about it. And I'm like, ugh.
Does your sister like Elaine?
No. She's not an idiot.
Okay. She's not an idiot.
She's not an idiot. Of course she doesn't like Elaine. If any of you like Elaine, we need to have a private DM session so you can add me on Discord and we'll DM about how you're wrong.
We can do some therapy.
We need to talk about it, obviously, because she ain't it.
You're entitled to your opinion, but it's wrong.
It's wrong. So we'll talk about how wrong you are. I'll create a PowerPoint, post the slides in Discord.
Why Elaine sucks.
Dun dun dun.
I was disappointed too. I wouldn't say I disliked it or that I hated it. I would reread it. Glad that I have it as part of the collection, overall. but not what, I guess it just like it didn't meet my expectations. It was really where I'm at with it.
I think the first thing that immediately I didn't enjoy was that I wanted Nesta to work through her trauma without changing Nesta.
Okay.
And it felt like all of Nesta's callousness and all of Nesta's steel and all of her coldness was written off as trauma.
Yes, it really was.
And it was like, okay, but why can women not be mean just because? Like, why do you have to sweeten them?
Why do they have to be so soft?
Why can't Nesta just be mean? I loved her as mean and cold and steely and rigid, and that's what made her interesting. It created some.
She was assertive.
polarism.
I always like where she was described as, you know, her gaze cuts through,
Yes.
or she's assessing everything. Like, she's not oblivious. She's very aware. She's very intelligent.
A steel trap is how they described her mind in Avatar, where you know even a glamour didn't fool her.
Yeah.
And that was completely written away from me.
And the way they broke down her trauma, because she's always been this way.
Yes.
Even before the trauma of being turned into a fae. But they really reeled it back to, even when her mother just, like, treated her the way she did and, like, made her a socialite, like, terribly, horribly mean for high society, like, it just made her a cold and horrible person.
It made away all the things that I liked about her, and it made it seem like for a woman to be assertive and to be assessing and to be calculating, you have to be traumatized.
Yeah.
And I'm like, trauma does not always equal personality.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing I did not enjoy, was that everything that had been set up about Nesta was written off as trauma so that she was more likable.
Yeah.
And I didn't enjoy that because I wanted Nesta to stay Nesta.
Yeah. I think it was towing a fine line.
It was.
And it always is when a writer really breaks down trauma or makes a huge focus for a character, right? But, and that was like also in all these discussion groups, right? Anything you're a part of for Sarah J. Maas Online or anything, for the whole year leading up to this,
Yeah.
we were wondering, you know, pro or con Nesta, and it would always be, she is mean because of her trauma, or people were more like we are. She can be who she wants to be.
And still have trauma.
Yeah, and have trauma to work through. And she erred on the side of, I'm gonna make it because of her trauma. And was that pandering? I wonder.
I don't know.
You know, to make it so people wanted to keep, you know, more people wanted to keep reading it, or to be like, hey, I understand trauma. I do like the way that throughout the book Nesta processes her trauma and like does a lot of self-reflection. I like it, and I think it's good, and I think she did a lot of healthy things.
I love like the meditation and the getting fit to kind of combat your emotional turmoil, to try to channel it. And I liked a lot of like the aggression towards her loved ones, because that made sense. But at the end, I didn't feel like the things that had made them Nesta were kept. So all that like calculating and cool assessment, none of that was mentioned, and none of it was addressed. And then she became Feyre 2.0.
Oh yeah, she became so much like Feyre.
She was Feyre 2.0.
She went from resenting Feyre to, quote, understanding her to, I want to be like her. But, and that just kind of stink, because there was even a part where Cassian was like, she was like, I don't know how to fix me. And he was like, you don't need to fix yourself.
Yeah.
You can help yourself, and you can heal, and you can work through things. That doesn't mean you have to change, basically. It's exactly what he told her.
I felt like, it bugged me so much that Cassian came off as Rhysand.
You think?
I feel like Sarah J. Maas struggles when she writes points of view that she can't keep the character going. So Nesta came off a lot of the time sounding like Feyre. And then Feyre sounded like, who is this like earth angel that's just like,
I didn't get how Feyre sounded. Yeah.
Who is this?
Whenever she had dialogue, I was like, what are you saying?
Who is this person?
What are you saying about?
And then Rhysand totally sounded like Tamlin at some point. It's just this like weirdo.
Super protective, putting a shield around his mate.
And I'm like, this sounds like Tamlin. And it felt like there was a real struggle to write Cassian and Nesta as Cassian and Nesta and not Feyre and Rhysand. And I just didn't get it. And it wasn't bad. Again, it wasn't distasteful because I loved Feyre, but I would find myself going, wait, that doesn't sound at all like Nesta.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know how. I might have to take time to like reflect on that more and like stew in the book to see if I agree with it or not. I super agree that like listening or like having the dialogue with Rhysand and Feyre, I was just like, I don't want to look at you or hear you or go away, get out of the book. You sound super weird.
Super weird.
But like reading the characters as Nesta and Cassian especially, he did feel sort of like his own character to me. And I think part of that is when you read Rhysand, he's very like elegant and also
yeah,
he's, like,
that's true.
He's very emotional, like all the time. Cassian is a lot more crass.
Yeah, he is crass.
Yeah.
The book is a lot more crass. Okay. We're gonna
definitely 18 plus.
This is mature content. Like, this is not.
Yeah, the
safer
Avatar
word.
series is. I think they are rebranding it all as adult now, probably because of this book. Because if you're gonna make this part of the whole Avatar series,
it is.
You can't claim the others are YA.
This is mature content. This is not even 18 plus. This is like you should be. This is NR-17. This is like smut, hardcore smut.
Yeah, definitely smut in there, and the themes that they're dealing with. Yeah, I mean,
really heavy.
A 15-year-old can be exposed to these kinds of themes, but I do think need to be older to understand the complexities that they're trying to go through with them.
There's a lot I liked about it, and there's a lot that I just didn't love.
Yeah.
And I think Cassian felt. You're right. Cassian felt like more Cassian. Nesta felt way too much like Feyre for my taste.
Do you think maybe it was because she was losing like her like hard edges?
I think that sometimes writers struggle to make a hard woman feel likable. You know, and I think that's a real struggle, and that's something that gets addressed in the King of Scars duology, that one of the female main characters is that woman. Mm-hmm. And it's something a male comments on in the book, that people try to explain away her hardness as, oh, she just hasn't found love yet, or oh, she just hasn't found this yet, as a way to make her, and especially because she's a beautiful character, as a way to kind of explain away her hard edges. And the character in that book says, why would you want to do that? Because it's okay if not everyone can handle it. Yeah. She's biting and she's hard, and if you don't enjoy that, then you should not be around. And I liked the way that character was written, because no one tried to explain. She obviously has trauma too, but her temperament doesn't get explained away. Yeah. And I liked that, and I was super interested to see Nesta be this like person that we have come to either dislike or love. Okay. I see where you're going now. Like, if you feel like you can't write it into the way that they are speaking, their mannerisms, whatever their thoughts, bring in another character to address it and outright say it. You know? You can do that. You know that happens in real life. And I personally know women who are abrupt and kind of like abrasive. Yeah. And I would hate for especially a significant other to be like, oh, but I love you the way you are. But then their narrative is written in a way that makes them someone that they're not. And I felt like, I don't know, it didn't feel true to Nesta to me. And that was the first thing that disappointed me, was that I didn't hate her character. It just didn't feel like the Nesta I knew. It felt like this new character that I was learning about with some of Nesta's tendencies. And I was like, well, she's mean, but then it just felt like lashing out mean instead of her cool assessment mean. Yeah. And it was a different kind of mean too. It was all lashing. Every single time she said anything harsh to somebody, it was a lashing out. If it wasn't political, it was lashing out. And when did she do that in the first 3 books? She never did. It was just, I'm looking at you, I'm assessing you. If you are lacking, I'm going to tell you. Yeah. And if not, I'll just make some kind of like coy comment about it. Yeah. And it can be approving, but it's still got like an edge to it. It felt like the difference between a cold, calculating, emotionless person versus someone who is lashing out from trauma. And I was like, neither one of those are wrong. It just didn't read like the same character. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. I would have liked to see her trauma addressed and explored without sacrificing that coolness to Nesta that I really liked to see in a character, because then it was just another Pharaoh. Nothing wrong with Pharaoh, nothing wrong with the character, but we already have one of those.
Yeah. I think Sarah J. Maas has a very good versus evil thing going on. And I would have loved for Nesta to have been that morally gray character that she finally brought out and just like put on display and said, here she is. You can like her, you can hate her, you can pick her apart. But this is the way that she is. But instead she was like, no, I have to make her one of the goodies.
She even did that with Amryn to an extent.
Yeah.
Where, and I love Amryn, but even in this book, it was like, okay, writing somebody who's a millennia old, all she said was girl and boy to make her seem old.
Yeah.
And I was like, the wisdom wasn't there. And I don't know, this like super bugs me. I don't know how many times I can read something that's like, I'm shocked at the amount of power this person has. I'm like, oh my god, it's no longer a shock. Like, everyone is super powerful. Like, can we stop being shocked by it? At some point, Amryn's got to be like, yeah, I've seen all this before. Like, it's fine.
She's like, oh, I haven't seen this for 10,000 years.
It's just like, okay, so
but you've been around for way longer than that.
I'm sorry, but like at 31, I'm like, I don't care. You know, like, I would love to see Amryn just be like, yeah, okay.
Just, that's an ancient weapon. There's one of those in the closet.
I'm just like, she's supposed to be this like millennia-old baddie, and she was just like, I don't know, like.
They took her from being very like ominous to just being like annoyed, and not in like a clever way, but in an annoying way. She's annoyed and I'm annoyed by it.
This is where my next kind of thought comes in, was that there was a lot of the book that made sense. Like, I liked that Nesta kind of met new friends and had her own life and went on this kind of parallel to parts of another story, you know, like climbing and figuratively like beating, overcoming, like all that stuff. I loved that part of the story, and I loved the new friends.
Yeah.
But then it cost us all the other people we have come to love. Rhysand was like, who is this? Like, who is this guy? And why is he here? Elaine was literally pointless.
She's been pointless from the beginning.
And I will die on that hill. I will say, yes, Elaine is dumb and pointless.
They tried to make her a little bit more, like,
assertive.
She
still came off as dumb.
They were like, oh, I told Elaine she didn't have to come. They're still trying to shelter her, and she's like, I'll do it for the court. I'm uncomfortable.
But she didn't do anything, by the way.
Bro, you being here is not helping anyone. They even said you didn't look cute.
Oh my god, Moore literally just showed up to winnow people in and out.
Yeah, that was weird, because Asriel lived at that house. Why couldn't he be doing that?
It made no sense. So I'm saying, like, if we were going to focus on Nesta, right, and I wanted to focus on Nesta, she set it up so that Cassian and Nesta were away from everybody else. They went away. They went camping, okay? And then they got brought back to the House of Wind so they could be back around everyone.
Even way before that, they put them in the house. It was Cassian, Az, and Nesta. It was, you're going to go stay in that house with Cassian, and Az is going to be there, like, on and off between his 5 missions. Cool. Like, it's set from the beginning. I was like, this is going to be them together, like, facing off.
No.
Like, hard stuff, like, moldering into, like, that smoldering whatever.
No.
And then, like, she brought in the friends, so that's cool. And then we just got more and more Feyre and Rhysand, and I was like, I don't really care about what's happening now.
It felt like there was 2 things that Sarah J. Maas wanted to do. And she wanted to build this story, and she didn't want to sacrifice either one. But it would have been better for the book if they cut out the old and just focused on Nesta's story. But it was like trying to balance the 2 didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it was
very jarring.
It was super jumpy. Like, it jumped from one thing to the other, to the other, to the other, and nothing happened.
Yeah. They'd be like, oh, we need to go tell Rhys about, like, this crazy ancient thing that we just found, and like the earth-shattering realization we've come to, and he's just like, ah. But
Yeah.
Feyre, I'm stressed about this other, and I was like, oh, I forgot about Feyre and the other thing, and I'm like,
It would have been fine. I would have rather the old just forget about it. Okay,
Yeah.
just like forget about it and let's focus on the new things. And there were so many other new things that got brought in the book that ended up either being like super easily resolved, where I was like, was this a crisis? Because this was not a crisis.
it seemed very imminent.
Or like Eris, he was there, and then he had a part to play, and then it just dragged on, and you were like,
He
okay,
seemed
but
like such a major player.
and he wasn't. And at the end of the book, you're like, that was it.
The
that
whole
was
time
the big
I'm
reveal.
sitting here like, Eris, what's Eris gonna do? Eris is gonna be a backstabber. Eris
No.
is, and then Eris is, and then I'm like, Eris isn't gonna, he's gonna like become one of their family members. Yeah.
Nothing happened.
No, Eris is just a hang around.
The big bad death god,
Yeah.
he made a part. He was there.
Then peace out.
Nothing happened. Like, nothing came of it. So I was like, so what was the point of having this in the book?
Yeah.
Like, the queen, okay, we were super spooked. And then they have a showdown, and then it's like easily resolved in a few pages. And I was like,
It was
what?
like, we have all these big things that motivate her to do the things that have bettered herself, or whatever in a sense, or made changes to herself, really, depending on how you want to look at it. But in the grand scheme of, like, the world,
Didn't make any
it
didn't
actually
contribute
matter.
anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem with books, is that when you have plots, they need to matter to the book. They need to
Yeah.
matter to the story. And sometimes simple is better. The main point of this book was Nesta making new friends and building her life and having Cassian and going on the big mountain trial, right?
Yeah.
That was the point.
Yep.
And that would have been a great book. The Troves, the Death God, the Queen, Eris, Elaine, Moore, Rhysand, Feyre, none of it contributed to the book.
She didn't even really explore her powers that much,
No.
honestly.
And
That could have been the big point
the
of the book.
Troves, someone called it like hunting the Horcruxes. And I was like, yeah, we went on a hunt for these Horcruxes, and they did nothing.
We dragged it out, and then it was just like,
Nothing came to this. And I was like, what? And literally the point was, oh, we'll just shove them away like we did pieces of the cauldron. Speaking of which, spoiler alert, she doesn't get her powers from the cauldron. She all of a sudden randomly acquired them from the mother.
it doesn't make any
To
sense.
make the book work, she like retconned.
You can't do
You
that.
can't retcon. And it just felt like,
That's such a bad move.
it felt like an unfinished book, like it hadn't gotten through the editing process, or like someone's fan fiction.
Oh,
I don't hate fan
does feel like fan fiction.
But it doesn't like.
But that is a thing that you have a give and take in fan fiction with, where you're like, I understand this is fan fiction, and I can make these concessions, and be totally okay with
Be
it,
fine
be
with
very happy reading it. Because it's fan fiction, it's not canonical.
If
and I'm
this
happy
had
about
been
it.
on a Wattpad, I would have been like, dang, this is a good fan fiction.
Yeah.
For this to come from the author, I
It's
felt
awkward.
like this is a problem that people have with Star Wars. You can't retcon things, okay? Because then it breaks the world.
Yeah.
And it pulls you out of it. And for me, Nessa would have been fine in a fan fiction because when other authors write a character, they perceive it differently.
Mhm.
This was the same character that Sarah J. Maas already wrote.
Yeah.
And total, I mean, I don't know. I didn't hate the book. I enjoyed it. But it did read like fan fiction to me. And that makes me really critical of it because there was so much of it that was jarring. The plot jumped
Now that
around.
you said that, I'm never going to stop thinking about that.
It
Definitely
just
fan fiction.
didn't feel like it did much for the world or the universe. And I'm reading several books at the same time.
Mhm.
And, Chain of Iron, it really feels like it's the same universe. The King of Scars is a separate duology from the OG, and it feels like the same
I feel
universe.
like if she had played this the way that Leigh Bardugo, Cassandra Clare play those things, where they say, here's my entire story universe, but I have separate series.
Yes.
Infernal devices, mortal instruments, blah, 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 blah. I mean, she's got so much going on. But Leigh Bardugo, she's like, here's the Grishaverse.
Yeah.
Here's the trilogy. Here's Six of Crows. Here's the next one. And you've got the magic system, you've got the land, but you don't have to worry about all those other characters that you don't care about, and you focus on these new characters in each one.
I would have even
That
enjoyed.
would really help this out.
I would have enjoyed it if it had been like, okay, they start the journey and they say, okay, we need to get Nesta out of this crazy situation. She's going to go on this personal journey with these group of people.
Yeah.
That would have been fine. You could introduce the new characters, you could have left the old behind, and would have felt like a progression towards something. But this just couldn't make up its mind. It couldn't make up its mind what book it wanted to be and who it wanted the main characters to be and what story it wanted to follow and what loops to tie in.
I really anticipated such a different story.
I did too.
And, I mean, that's nobody's fault but my own, right? But I guess that's why I'm a little disappointed, is I thought we were going to see a lot more of Lucian.
Yeah.
And maybe, Vasa.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to see a lot more of them, and maybe, like, some resolution about his mating situation with Elaine.
Yeah.
Maybe Nesta could have become friends with them. They could have gone on, like, a journey to battle
Yeah.
the queens. Cassian could have accompanied them as a general.
To go somewhere, and that didn't end up happening.
They literally just said, the queens are gone. There's one queen now. Where did they go?
And even her at the end, it's like, oh, well, that's done. Like, okay. But that's how most of the book felt to me. And I'm sorry, I don't want to break anyone's heart because I'm a huge Nessa Cassian fan. Okay, love it. I was into it. I was feeling it.
I liked it. I was into it. Yeah.
The book, I literally didn't care about the relationship.
Oh.
I did not. And I don't know if I was so annoyed by the rest of the book that I was just like, I rolled my eyes so many times.
You know what? I liked
pained
it.
me.
I liked it way more from Cassian's perspective than Nesta's. And I usually hate reading the male POV. Like, even the little tidbits of Rhysand, I'm like, okay, cool. Get back to Pharaoh. But I loved reading from Cassian's point of view.
I didn't hate it as much from Cassian's point of view, but I also like, I don't know.
Nesta would literally just be like
it.
She'd be like, does he like me? Does he want to get with me again? I'm just not sure. I'm tired and I'm gonna go to sleep now. Cassian would be like, I'm so stressed out. Oh my gosh, she's all I can think about. And he would really like get into it with himself.
I need pining.
Cassian had a lot more
He had pining, okay? And
Nesta had no pining.
I need my MC to just be like, oh, will he, won't we, like that pool, that like, ugh, okay?
Yeah.
Nesta was just like, okay, daddy, smut.
Yeah.
End of story. And I was like, but where's the...
She had and I get that can be part of her personality. She's a very confident person.
Yeah.
She had a little bit of faltering. But then as soon as she realized she didn't need to falter with him, it would just be like, oh, I'm tired and I'm not. She would spare no thought for him. And I think that's the difference between, like, you know, having confidence is one thing, but this wasn't that. It was just, like, negligence. He was consumed by her entirely.
Yeah.
And she was just like, he's cool.
I want some wooing. You know, like, I want to see some woo.
Yeah.
I want the woo, and it's something that
you wanted him to woo her?
I wanted someone to woo someone. I mean, like...
She's not, I would say she's not like the wooing type.
She's not the wooing type.
What was he going to woo her with?
I don't know.
Books?
But I would have liked, like, some of their banter, you know, because that was, like, where my interest struck.
They needed more banter.
Where, like, Rhysand was, like, flirty with Feyre.
Yeah.
Nessie and Cassie were, like, squaring off. And I was like, ooh, that's some, like, tension energy I need.
You're right, I was really looking forward to that. And literally as soon as they first got together and started having whatever kind of, you know, little sexual relationship they were having, banter died. Absolutely gone.
And then it just felt really dumb to me. Like, there was nothing that drew me in to ship it. You know, there was, like, no moment, because it would go from, like, nothing, slut! Mm-hmm. And then you were like, I mean, okay.
Yeah, it would definitely go from, I'm having this huge emotional experience, I'm tired, and then we would just get like a little snippet of, yeah, we had sex for like 4 days, it was tight, now we're going on this mission, and I'm not thinking about it anymore. What?
This isn't
a flow, and this also isn't even like a high and low. It was just, you know, like
the squeal
like
moment,
scattering.
Like when like Rhysand pops up to the boat and he's like, "Hello, Feyre, darling." Okay, it makes you go. like,
even just thinking about it now, I
just-
got like
oh
really
my God.
excited.
And your heart is just like, oh my God, I needed that moment. Like, you're lying.
He
If
flicks
you're,
invisible dust off his jacket.
like, if my SO texts me something,
Yeah.
and it's just super precious, I cannot help myself. I'm just like, it's so cute. Okay, I need those moments in a book for me to ship the couple.
You're right. Then.
And I cannot, going back, think of one moment that was like a squeal-worthy moment.
They had this month. They even had, and they grew to have like an emotional connection where I realize I care about him now more than a sexual way. He always cared about her more than that, and like they're realizing these things about each other. But there's no big like climatic moment where it's just like.
There's no squeal moment. There wasn't a moment that made me
Even
go,
when they first got together, it was more just like when it was like, oh, and then her lips crashed to his. I was like,
okay.
it wasn't where I was just like, finally, her lips crashed to his. It was just, oh, they're doing it now?
There was no like kiss me until I'm sick of it moment. You know,
Yeah.
there was no moment that was like, oh my God, this is like going on every bookmark. This is like the theme of the book. You know, you have a t-shirt and it says, hello, favorite darling. You know, like the quotable moment.
Yeah. Yeah, when
There was no moment
when
for
they first,
them.
when they first kissed, I was just very surprised about when it happened, and I was like, oh.
It was,
And then like it was
the smut was fine.
It was
The smut
smutty, so I was like, that's cool.
That's cool. The smut was it wasn't like super, she's written some really cringy smut before. This was not cringy.
It was well written smut, yeah.
But,
It was tasteful, I think.
Well,
I just finished reading Flames of Chaos, which was recommended to me by Book Talk. I gotta stop reading things that were recommended to me by Book Talk, I think.
No,
At
Book
least
Talk
on
is
the
on a different
18 plus level, because they're never what I want them to be. That was a smut book. It wasn't good, man. I guess there was no sensuality to it.
Oh, yeah,
This
that's
is-
not good.
What do I do to get off on tangents when we do this?
That's what we do.
But there was no sensuality. It was literally just like, there was so much plot going on in the background, but it was just like, all we're doing is like blinking all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, but it wasn't even good. It wasn't well written. You weren't getting like any of like those sultry details or
Yeah.
like heated glances, whatever. It was literally just like we locked eyes, and then we started doing it. And I like the way SJM wrote this a lot better. So
Yeah,
I
her
think
smut was fine. It was
this read
good.
following that immediately, oh, it was a lot better.
And
in a better place.
it did make me cringe. That part didn't. But it was the times after that that made me like, oh my God, like get through it already.
Sometimes I felt like, is this SJM? Because the language was so different. And I guess I'm not used to her dropping all
You
these
know what? It's how she
words.
wrote Crescent City to me.
Oh, yeah, where she was just like, I wanted to drop all these F-bombs because I can.
Yeah, and then I didn't like Hunt and Bryce either. And it felt the same for like Hunt and Cassian Red Light. Hunt and Cassian, same person, honestly. Like same person. Bryce is still my fave. Nesta, it was like the same kind of relationship where I didn't get any squeal moments with Hunt and Bryce either.
Mm.
And I didn't get any squeal moments from here. And so I think for me, without the squeal moments, I don't care. I'm just like,
Do you think she was going for a slow burn and it was unsuccessful?
for which one?
In either case. I think definitely for Crescent City she was, because
Yeah, she was going for a slow burn. I just didn't care.
in Crescent City that was hyped and hyped and hyped as a big adult read, and then they like didn't even have sex in that book, so
I think she
chill
was
out there.
really going for like, you can be sexually like into somebody without really like being in love with them yet.
Yeah, maybe
And
for
like I
her.
like that, like
Yeah.
yes, for the liberation, yes, okay. I don't want to read about it because I don't care about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. And there was
That's what
nothing that made
fan
me.
fiction is for. That's what, you
That's
know.
fan fiction, okay?
That's what a little 100-page blip is for.
Yeah.
That's not what 800 pages is
And
for.
it just felt like mission, smut, Cassian pining, favor, more drops into window, someone away, mission, random queen, power trove. And I was like, what is happening? Oh, and in the end, we'll just go on this, actually the main point of the book, with my friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
It was
like,
really all over the place. It was
It was
not
all
linked
over.
well, which is why I stand by. She should have, I think, kept it I liked everything that was happening. It was just too jumbly. Break it up, make it a smaller series.
Yeah, it could have been a novella.
Yeah, it could have been. If you could have either cut it way down and made it a novella, or made it like a little duology. Even.
Yeah, a duology would have been good.
Yeah.
It did feel jarring, and I think that it was so jarring I couldn't focus on one part, and I had a real problem focusing on the relationship, and it didn't do it for me. And I know that I won't look back and go, oh, Cassie and Nesta.
Which I really wanted to do.
I really wanted to do.
Because I just wanted her to be that cold, like.
I wanted them to be like this couple that was just like a powerhouse, you know, like.
Yes, where he was just like
the tension.
I'm like that brutal warrior type, right? And he's still like a good person, whatever. We already knew that, but he was just like the one who's so unafraid.
The one who destroys the summer court, you know.
Yeah, the one who broke a building.
I wanted that, and then she even made him
yeah.
seem like I didn't like how his broodiness kept coming off like a big bully for being a brute. He was so proud of who he was, and now I feel like like all the things that made Cassie in this like
they kept like alluding that he was like stupid just because he was powerful or like physically strong and.
Or a jock.
That was very trash. I didn't like that.
Right?
They were like, he's a meathead.
He is a
Literally
meathead.
all of the fays in this court are buff as all get out.
He is a meathead, and I love that it was a joke that he destroyed the summer court because it's so like it's what makes him likable.
Yeah.
And then it kind of flipped the script, and I don't know. Even that just seemed like okay, all the things that we talked about Cassian being Cassian, we're now gonna like make it something else. I was like, yeah, but I want the guy who's like a big Labrador that like knocks things over and is also like really intelligent and like I want him to be this full fleshed out character. And when someone's like he's a brute, he's like, yeah, listen to this story. And instead he was like, oh no, it hurts my feelings. And I'm like, who is this guy? Who is this? He was bordering real hard on the line of simp right there, and you know I don't hang around for a simp. He wasn't even like Carden simp. He was just simp.
Because you love a simp and you aren't here for him. Yeah, and he's right there on the line. So like I don't dislike him because he's not a simp. But yeah, he was a little too. I could just tell you that I get so much crap because of these muscles, man. No, you think I'm a brute? Push him over and keep walking. That's what I wanted Cassian to do. Nesta would have been like
the meathead and the mean girl. That is a trope I am here for.
I would have
meathead and mean girl
devoured.
I would have
meathead and mean girl. Yes.
Tropes are here for a reason. Let's talk about that.
Ooh.
I love a mean girl, ain't take nothing, heartless with a simp. Okay,
you do.
Give me more. Give me more of it. Because I'm like two of my favorite books are Jude and Carden. I love a meanie with a simp.
Yes.
And you know Jude is written as a meanie, and there's not a nice bone in her body. She's very caring and very loving.
That's why I love Jude though. Is she
ruthless?
She was like, yeah, I killed them. I'd do it again.
I'd do it. I'd do it again.
I don't feel bad about it, and I don't feel bad that I don't feel bad.
And then you got a simp, like a pretty boy simp.
Carden was just like, you hate me?
Hard eyes.
Say it again.
Yeah, say less, girl. And I love it. And I would have loved like Nesta to be the same as Jude, just like ruthless and unapologetic for it. But she still had heart. Jude really cares. Jude loves Carden. Jude loves her family. You can't reason that away.
You can be heartless or cold and be like, I'm going to kill for those people. And you know, everybody else can hate me for it and think I'm trash. That's kind of where Rhysand came from. Earlier in Avatar, he was like,
I'll do anything.
I will absolutely be the monster of the Night Court if it means, you know, this small circle of people.
I even like how Rhysand was written here where he really was eaten up with what was going to happen with Feyre.
Yeah.
I loved that. Okay, that felt like Rhysand to me.
It was
but then he was also super controlling and like there was some weirdness where he was like mean to Nesta for no reason, and like I don't know, he was written in a way that made me go, who is this guy? Like, what happened to the Rhysand I knew and loved?
Yeah.
And Feyre was written like this hippie sweetheart. I'm like, who is this?
I didn't get Feyre in this one at all. She was just kind of like, oh, I'm so sweet in here.
I am healed from all my trauma, and I'm here to teach you. And I was like, who is this like who is this yoga instructor? Like, I don't
She was just like,
understand.
I just want my sisters to be happy, and let's all hold hands and get along.
Kumbaya, darling. This book was all over the place. The characters were all over the place. Sometimes they read like them, and sometimes I was like, "Oops,
Yeah.
is this?" And I no tropes that I loved. I would have loved Mean Girl and Meathead. We didn't get it. I would have loved girl goes on mission with BFFs. Sort of got that. But then there was like it was like smushed right in the end, and like, okay, we did it.
I would have loved like the guard trope a little bit. Like she had to go on a mission, and he had to like be there while she did it, and she was all cold, didn't care about him. I don't need you, and he was just like, well, I'm here because he made me, but like, don't fall off that cliff. You know?
I didn't get a lot. Like, they randomly went camping for like 3 weeks in the wilderness because she was so mean. They had to like escape the night court. Okay, and then they immediately went back to the night court.
They
and
were
I'm
like, oh, it's been a couple hours, it's fine, come back. And he was just like, nah, we're gonna do this because I want to do this. That, I know it was like she was playing on the male like need to protect, that primal instinct they have. Don't act like Feyre can override that. You've already established that it's its whole own thing. So I didn't like where that came in. They could have had that conversation where like, I understand, but reason is still too sensitive. You need to stay away for a little bit.
Yeah.
That would have made a little more sense.
Or they could have just stayed camping.
Yeah. And she could have been like, hey, talk to me. And he could have been like, nah, you can't know where we are, so your husband doesn't kill us.
So like, this is like what tripped me. And this was like in chapter like 10. Okay. All right. So and then the whole rest of the book, I kept thinking about it. So like they leave. Mm-hmm. And they have to like go to the wilderness because she's really managed to piss off Rhysand, right? Mm-hmm. And then Feyre's like, you must leave because my husband's a brute. He might kill you. And then instead of training and then going on the blood rite where she meets her BFFs and they're like all in a traveling companion and they train at the Illyrian camp and then they like do all this stuff. They went camping, went to the Illyrian camp, trained a little bit, but she refused to train, so they went back to the House of Wind because she will train there, and then she meets her BFFs, and then they go back to the Illyrian camp for her to do the blood rite. What? Why would you not just... What?
Well, it was about her. I get it in the beginning because it was about her pride, and he was just like, I should have known she wasn't going to train in front of all these people because she's way too prideful. So I got that. And then bring her to the house, and that was a good play for her to meet her friends because like shared trauma bonds. Okay, so you like the play you're making there, SJM.
But you see what, like, it felt jumpy to me.
But yeah, like the time,
I feel like it was a lot of this.
Yeah.
And pick a direction. That's all I wanted was for someone to pick a direction and then go with. Like if we wanted to stay with the House of Wind, by the way, the House relationship with Nesta, adorable.
Oh my gosh, when the House, spoiler alert, when the House finally like reveals its heart to Nesta.
Super cute.
And she's like, oh, everybody's been so afraid of you, but you're just trying to show that you can relate to them.
But I also was a little confused because like, the House had, what? It had never been shown that the House like had a heart, that people were like, people hadn't responded well to its darkness, literally never been established before. So it'd be like if I just was like, Kayla, I love that you've always accepted my weird knack for twiddling my thumbs. And Kayla was like, yeah, I always accept people's weird habits, but I had never twiddled my thumbs at work before. So it's like, what are you referring back to exactly? So she was like, I accepted the heart of the house. And we were like, oh, that's so dope. Wait, what? What heart of the house?
Nobody ever goes to those lower levels. Well, I have to shelve these books. If nobody goes to those lower levels,
why are the books there? And how did they leave?
Shelve the books down there.
Who got the books?
Right.
And then it was just like, okay, so the heart, like the house had like this darkness, right?
Yeah.
And then Nesta embraced it because Nesta also has a heart of darkness. You get it? You see the parallels? Do you see the symbolism? It's
again, why she should have been a morally great character.
Exactly. So the Nesta embraces the darkness of the house, and you're like, oh, that's so cool. But the darkness of the house has never been previously established, and no other character has ever struggled or mentioned it.
Well, it was where Bryaxis lived, right?
Yeah. But that's what made the house dark, was Free Access lived there.
I see, yeah.
So it's
Free
kinda
access
like-
was what was scary.
So it didn't make sense, and it was like the mother thing. It was
Yeah.
just like explained by something else entirely, but it had already been established in a previous book what it is.
Yeah.
Free Access was the darkness of the house.
Mhm.
But now we know the darkness is the house. And you're like, well then what did Free Access? Why was
Was he in there?
Well, I
What
thought
was he chilling in there for?
I thought that's what he was down there for.
He was showing everybody nightmares.
Right? Okay, so confused. And it was like, well, Nesta gets her power from the cauldron, except she got it from the mother. And you're
Yeah.
like,
And that was
okay.
not alluded to at all. Like, she was like sitting there in her room right after they visited her old cottage, like, what? She randomly got this little carving of the mother, and she
Yeah.
was like, this might be the mother, I don't even know, it could be a priestess. And she's staring at a carving that she got, that her dad made, which was a flower. They don't say where or when she got the carving, just that she randomly has it in her room now. And she's just like, oh cool, there's this carving, I guess I'll put it next to this other carving.
and I promise I don't like really deep read books. Like I just kind of take it for face value. But there
Well,
were
it's
so
just
many
fantasy too, yeah.
glaringly obvious, like, wait, what moments that I could not overlook it. And it kind of like, even when I was hearing all these cute things that were supposedly happening between Cassie and Nessa, I was like, oh my god, I don't care. Because there were so many other things that I was like, what is this? Like, it was just, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, what did I just read?
Your mind was wrapped up in other things. You
Yeah.
couldn't- Yeah.
Like, and I could not get past it. Like I spent a lot of the book going, why are we doing this? What is this? And then I finished the book going, what happened here? Like, what did I just read? And of course I immediately jumped into Chain of Iron, and I got my squeal moment on
So you
chapter
feel-
9.
You feel a little better now.
And everything makes sense, and I can tell there's a plot that's going somewhere. And like, things are carrying as it is, and magical swords that come out of the book actually
Yeah.
have a purpose and aren't just being like, oh yeah, we're just gonna toss those in the refrigerator. Like, what?
The fact that they don't explore, it's literally called A Court of Silver Flames. She flashes the silver flames of her eyes constantly, but they do not explore her power at all. It randomly helped create these weapons.
Inconsistent.
She put the holes in the wall when she freaked out. Nobody says, hey, we should check on this.
Yeah.
Because they just don't care to anymore.
Oh, and then it gets addressed. They were like, oh well, Amryn was gonna train her, but then she said no.
Yeah, I stopped deciding to train you because you didn't care to train anymore. Okay, not like she could literally burn the world down.
And then it was
You
like,
are petty
what
for
is?
millennial.
I still don't understand what Nesta's power is, because you were like, she's literally death, but then she also like
But then she was cold
creates
fire.
things.
Yeah.
With cold fire, and she like
is made, but then
imparts
she's death.
things in things, and she can remake.
That's a very creationist type thing, right?
Yeah, and you're like,
A
okay, so
maker.
what about the fire, silver?
Yeah.
So, but her hands turn to things that can go through stone, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay, but what is her power? What is she?
Yeah. I need an explanation here.
Oh, and then
if she's
she-
deaf, why can't she just... Even when she was scared, and like when the Kelpie got her, was like, cool, her power is gonna come out, and like, she's gonna fight this Kelpie, and it was like, no, I'm gonna like grab this magical object, and it's gonna help me.
Yeah.
I thought you were dead.
I thought you were dead. Oh, and that's why the troves come in, and I'm like, what?
Right?
But she can use the troves because she was cauldron maid,
But not really.
but then she's also mother maid.
So is the mother maid thing just superseding everything
So-
else? So now that doesn't line up with anything else.
Yeah, there was so much of the book I was like, what?
There's a lot of inconsistencies.
Super
I need to analyze all of it. I was really excited to, if and when I get a copy of this book physically, I wanted to tab it. It was going to be the first book that I tabbed,
Oh yeah.
because then I was going to go back and reread all other SJM books, and I was going to tab quotable moments and Easter eggs, and I
Yeah.
was really going to like play that all out. Now I don't really care to.
I feel like I did.
The inconsistencies are a little much for me. If I tabbed it now, I'd probably just be like,
I like
purple
saved
stands for
some
what
things,
is it?
but I read it. I audio booked it.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's why I caught so many of the weird things, right? That I was like listening and be like, oh, wait, hold up, what?
Mm-hmm.
I can't with it.
I feel like we really ripped this pretty hard. The smut was pretty decent.
This one was pretty decent.
Again, definitely not a YA read. Don't
No,
audiobook it around
please-
your kids.
Oh, no, this is not safe for work. Please don't listen to the safe word.
Yeah.
Let me
no.
don't.
Did you listen to it at work?
I did until I learned not to. Until I was like, oh, it's too spicy, too spicy.
I was reading it on the work computer, and then I was like,
Ooh.
nope.
Exit.
Yeah.
The book was not horrible.
It
It's
wasn't
not
bad.
a horrible book.
I like the way it dealt with trauma.
I love the way it dealt
There's
with
a lot of
trauma.
ways you can explore that. I will say, the way that Nesta dealt with her trauma is not how I do or would like to.
No.
But it is a healthy.
His own.
If you read a book about dealing with trauma, this is how you would tell other people to deal with trauma. I don't hate it. It is healthy on paper, and some people it works really well to, do the whole exercise thing, whatever. But like, I'm glad she did a lot of self-reflection and made friends and was able to talk things out with them and build meaningful relationships.
Her friends were cute. I really liked her friends.
I did like her friends a lot.
I would have rather focused on the friends and not had more pop in every chapter. Oh, who was literally just a sounding board for Cassian to express his feelings to, so Cassian wasn't talking to himself. That was my favorite part about Morida's book. Was that,
So you didn't just have that internal dialogue?
Yeah, so you didn't have internal dialogue, you just had more pop in and go, hey Cassian, he was like, I really have these feelings, and she'd be like, bye.
She'd be like, feelings are cool, express yourself.
And then she just winnowed out, and you were like, what did Mora do here? That's how I felt about every of the old characters.
Oh, she's busy on the continent. She's here a lot for someone who's busy.
When they write off a character in a TV show for okay, the actress is pregnant and she's on maternity leave, and they're like, oh, this Dr. MD is at a convention for the next 3 weeks. That's what they do with Moore. That's what they do with Moore. And there was so much of it that I was like, why is this here? Okay, when they replace an actress.
Yeah.
Like they did in that 70s shows, they replace an actress, and you're like, that's not the same actress, but we're just all going to pretend it is. That's how Farrah came off.
Yeah, came off.
Farrah was replaced by Farrah, different actress Farrah.
You know how there's that whole theory that Avril Lavigne got cloned?
Yes, and she did. That's a fact, though.
I don't agree with that. But that is absolutely what happened to Farrah here. She was like, this is what Farrah would say.
Farrah was someone else completely. Farrah had none of her goofy, kind of silly, high queen, high lady. Farrah was like snooty, kind of I don't know.
She barely
high horse,
asserted it.
Okay, and then you had this person who was like, who is this hippie Innocent Brennan?
Yeah.
I'm best friends with Elaine now, and I must better you, Nesta.
They really just, another thing they wrote off was that Elaine business. Elaine, we finished Avatar and she couldn't talk to anybody, and she was like, I have a sense of the cauldron and premonition, whatever, and I'm spaced out all the time and I don't want to talk to anybody. And now she's just like, I'm fine, and I garden, and life is cool, and life is great, and it's all super wonderful.
Elaine was so pointless.
Yeah.
Az was the only good part about this book.
She just flipped around. Az? Nothing happened with that.
Nope, nothing happened with that. He was there for comedic relief. He was there just to say, you did nasty things at my kitchen table.
And then just sat down and ate there. Disgusting.
And Az sometimes had a feeling, sometimes briefly.
He did occasionally hold a gaze a little long.
Yeah.
Or have his shadows do the thing.
Oh my god, if I swear to God, I was gonna lose it if one more person gasped at a power and Az's shadows moved to or from somebody. Oh, and her new expression, the silver in their eyes.
Oh, when they started to cry.
When they started
Silver
crying,
lined her eyes.
Silver lined her eyes. I was like, what is that? Like, I don't think my eyes look silver when I cry.
I don't ever believe that. I would think that's such a weird line.
It's so weird. I would have taken any other cringy line.
Writers do that so much. I don't like it.
Silver behind her eyes. She cried. She's crying.
You could just say tears formed in her eyes.
Like
tears welled in her eyes. I don't know why it has to be a color.
And it was dumb. Because like then I could all I could think about was how many times we use silver. Amryn had silver eyes. Nessa has silver flames. Yeah. Apparently people cry, it looks silver. Also, as the shadows move to and from me.
Yeah. Somebody in a Facebook group I pointed out also that she uses the former and the latter a lot, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and she does.
She does all the time.
So I wouldn't call these signature moves. I would just say thesaurus.com is really useful.
Sarah J. Maas. Dear Sarah J. Maas. There is silver lining my eyes right now, thinking about all of these things, and I need you to stop. Stop doing them. I need you
it's a long letter, can't keep
to rewrite Alcatraz and then just end it, okay? I really did rip this apart, and I'm so sorry because I really didn't hate it, but like I actually did.
I enjoyed it, and it was like, you know what? It was comforting because it was a world that I liked and was familiar with, and like reading about, you know, the magic system, everything like that. Like I'm really into it. It's comfortable because it's familiar, and that's why I liked it. But would I say it's outstanding? No.
This reminded me very strongly of Throne of Glass.
I love Throne of Glass, though. I wasn't getting
I think I'm one of the only people who don't like Throne of Glass for the same reasons I didn't like this one. And it's just because I felt like Throne of Glass could not make up its mind about what it wanted to be.
I will argue here and say that she started Throne of Glass when she was very young, like a teenager. And like really by book 3 or 4, she grows into it a lot. The writing, the actual writing gets a lot better. I think the plot was always good and I liked it a lot, but the way it's written gets much better as it progresses.
I just didn't like Throne of Glass for the same reason. And I think that was the thing is like I would have liked it if I had started at book 3 or 4.
You can't though.
But it was like when I start a book and I see a lot of inconsistencies and I see a lot of plot jumping, it's so hard for me to remain invested. And that's one of the things I couldn't get into Throne of Glass because like when it started to pick up, I was already like, well, this is in direct conflict with what you just said here.
Yeah.
And I felt that way a lot about this one, and it didn't happen in Avatar in really obvious ways.
It's very solid.
You know, even when Feyre chooses Tamlin over Rhysand, it's explained and it's not retconned away. It would almost be like if in book 3, Feyre was all of a sudden like, yeah, but Tamlin's got the roses. And you're like, but you just said how much you hated the roses.
She doesn't try to be so complex in Avatar either, though. Like,
she just wrote the book.
She was like, I want to do a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Go off, girl. And she did it, and then she was like, I want to make it a little spicy.
And then she did.
And then she did, and she was like, cool, I'm done. And then she ended it, and it was cool.
You could have had
Throne of Glass. This is a little more complicated actually for an earlier series.
It's really complicated.
There's a lot going on.
And I didn't hate the characters either. There's so I will say this is something that I have an issue with Sarah J. Maas for. There's a different series called the Black Jewels trilogy. And it's written by Anne Bishop. And I read Anne Bishop's book before I read Sarah J. Maas, right? So, and this is mentioned on Reddit too. This is not just
you've told me this before.
Sarah J. Maas has either read the Black Jewels trilogy or is just coincidentally
choose your words carefully.
Really similar. I think that there are things that have been heavily borrowed from the Black Jewel trilogy. And if anyone wants to read the Black Jewel trilogy, I will give you a warning. It's weird. I don't know if it's good. It's an interesting magic system, but it is very 90s fantasy. So there's a lot of problematic things, right? There's a ton of problematic things. But down to a winged, male, heavy, patriarchal, borderline, barbaric society of people with wings, bat-like wings, that live in mountains and have a blood right that consists of them battling the mountain, and they fly, and they have little hooks on their wings, and they have jewels, and black hair and tan skin, and one are called the Illyrians, and one are called Irians.
Yeah.
Does that sound like a little...
I feel like we could have separated a little bit more there.
There's a lot of those things that come up in both Throne of Glass and ACOTAR, which I will say was not in this book.
Themes are definitely coincidental throughout fantasy stories, of course, especially fairy-based ones.
Yeah.
You know? They brought up like the Wild Hunt and things like that are mentioned. That's also mentioned in the Mortal Instruments sequel series, things like that. But there's a difference between taking concepts and taking straight descriptions. It's a little
and that's why I don't want to say it's like plagiarized, because I don't think it is. But I do think that there are things that were heavily borrowed from the Black Jewel trilogy, or that things that seem very, very consistent in both stories of Throne of Glass and ACOTAR. Those things were not in this book, Court of Silver Flames. So I was happy to see that, and that is something that I've noticed about Sarah J. Maas, is that she latches onto ideas and kind of like wants to do a bit of everything. And I think that when she ignores that, her writing gets better.
Yeah.
But those jumps between ideas happens in a lot of her series in different ways. And that would be one of my main criticisms of her books, is that they are very jumpy. And it's like she sees something and she wants to do it and can't say no to it.
Yeah.
Whether
That's
it be...
why you have editors, SJM. I feel like your editors might be a little scared of you. Maybe you should get some new ones.
And it just feels like even if like I saw something that I really liked in another author's book, you can borrow less or not include it or change it. And I feel like Sarah J. Maas really needs to work on being her own voice and trusting her own instincts. And in this book, those instincts were jumpy. It was like she couldn't say she wanted to include this, and so she did, and it didn't fit, and she wanted to include this, and it didn't fit. She can't let go of an idea.
Yeah.
And she needs to. And this book would have been better if she learns to let go of an idea she has. If it's from another author or inspiration, or that she's just really attached to her old characters. Like, you gotta cut the cord.
I agree. Anything I read about the editing process before this came out was that they cut out like smut scenes. I never read anything that they were cutting out about plot and or characterization or anything. And
Throne of Glass could have, I think, been served as that too. Because it really did feel like, and I got the point, okay, like I got the symbolism between the two different stories.
That's my little baby. So.
But I felt like even then, it seemed like she had a brain baby and couldn't let go of it and wanted to smush it with another one. And so she created these storylines to serve her plot that didn't really, you could have done without them. It would have been a fine book without them. And sometimes I think that about Sarah J. Maas. I know it's paining you to hear this.
I just love Throne of Glass. I love it very, very much.
I see that in her, and I'm like, it's one thing that really bothers me, is that she could not do these things.
Yeah. I see what you mean though, yeah. You can have great ideas, but sometimes you have to sacrifice them to make a great story.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is like, if you have anything that happens in a book, it needs to serve the plot. Yeah. And that's unfortunate, because there's a lot of things that I'd be like, ooh, but what if we saw this?
Yeah.
If it doesn't serve the plot, it's not for your book.
Yeah. And Easter eggs are cool too, but like, were there even any Easter eggs in here? No, because when you get to this level that Sarah J. Maas is at, that's the only thing that doesn't serve the plot that I would expect to see, is a little sprinkle here and there of an allusion to other series.
Yeah.
But that wasn't there. It was just excess tidbits.
I think the dancing was the most obvious example of like cool idea, but super unnecessary. What purpose does this serve?
And it was like she just wanted really badly to have a party.
Yeah. And she wanted Nesta to have like, oh, this was like so cringe. This really did make me roll my eyes. Like, Elaine was like, you've never heard the story of Nesta dancing? And you were like, no. I've never even heard of this before. What the hell?
She stole the Duke's heart at mere 14.
By dancing. And you're like,
that's creepy.
That's weird. And then it was like, okay, Nesta danced, and then it was never mentioned again.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, well, what? Like, what? Oh, so the heiress could, like, want to marry her.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, goes nowhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't go anywhere.
I was like, oh, so he's gonna be like lusting after her hardcore now, and she's gonna be like, no.
Cut it. It didn't need to be there. It did nothing.
Necessary.
And it was like, oh, that's so cool that like Nesta loves to dance. But you hadn't previously established it. It doesn't serve the plot.
Yeah.
And you could literally have her sigh, I love to dance. And done. You know, you've established this about the character, you can move on now.
Yeah.
This took up like a chapter.
Yeah, I really actually worked really hard to speed read that whole chapter because I thought something significant, like dramatic, was going to happen at the end of it.
No.
Nothing did. I was like,
Yeah.
cool. That was kind of a waste of my time.
That's what it is when she like, it's like she has this idea and she can't let go of
Yeah.
it. Like she loved reading about this race of people in a book she's read.
Yeah.
And she needed to include it in her own. That's great. Because it didn't sacrifice any of the book.
Yeah.
It came off a little like, oh, that's okay, sure.
Yeah.
But it served a purpose for the book. It like created a world, right? But in a lot of ways, she either has an idea or likes something and includes it in the book and it goes nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a criticism of Sarah J. Maas's books, is that like you don't have to include everything you think of.
Yeah. Sort out your ideas. You know, get a big, huge wall, storyboard it out. Like get you some yarn, right? And the yarns that don't connect,
Don't
get rid of those things.
include it.
Yeah.
And I think those would be like the most obvious things that annoy me about Sarah J. Maas's books. And then now 2 of them.
Yeah.
Because it's why I didn't like Throne of Glass.
Yeah.
And it's why I didn't like this one, is it just feels jumpy to me.
I could have done without so many POVs in Throne of Glass.
Yeah.
Really, you know what? No, I just could have done without Tower of Dawn. Who cares about Tower of Dawn? But
There's a lot of Throne of Glass, and I think because I came into it after ACOTAR, I didn't read it before.
I think that's how a lot of people are, because actually when I went into Sarah J. Maas as an author, people were telling me you're either going to like ACOTAR or Throne of Glass, and I like both.
Yeah.
But they are very different, and people are usually very sided about it.
I read ACOTAR first, and then I tried to go back to read Throne of Glass,
Very
and I was like,
different.
okay, so the first one I was like, all right, I get where you're going, and then book 2 I was like, I mean, I kind of get where you're going.
Yeah.
And then book 3 I was like, oh, I know where this is going, but why did we need the first 2 books? That could have been the first half of the 3rd book, and we would have been fine. And then like there was a lot of stuff that I was just like, did this need? Like, did we need to? Did we need this?
I feel like it was, and it's just me defending it. I feel like it was her like growing as an author, or like really developing Aelin as a character. But yeah, like objectively, you could cut a lot of it out, and
she should have
shorten
learned
it.
from that. You know, so those mistakes
she was
should not
younger
happen.
then,
And her
that was the learning experience.
Okay, so you have like 7 books of Throne of Glass, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you have 3 of ACOTAR,
Mhm.
1 Crescent City.
And
So this is
Avatar.
like her. I can't
That's
count.
math.
7 and 3 are at 10, and then 11. So this is her 12th book.
Yeah.
She should not be making these mistakes. Her 12th book should be a masterpiece.
Yeah. And she should be collaborating and editing with enough people that if she is getting tunnel vision, they should be, that's, reeling her back.
And I don't
saying,
like to
hey.
compare writers because you often can't. But Leah Bardugo started with the Grishaverse,
Mhm.
and the first 3 were good.
They were, I don't love them.
They were good.
Six Crows Duology.
Six of Crow was amazing, and then you got
Masterpiece.
King of Scars that is just incredible.
We're just
and you
elevating.
see her grow
Yeah.
as an author to where the next book that she puts out should be better than the rest.
Mhm.
I feel like Sarah J. Maas does this. ACOTAR was great, Throne of Glass was good, you kind of get this, and there was parts of Throne of Glass that was really good, and ACOTAR, parts of that were really good.
Yeah.
And then Crescent City was really good, but there was some criticism. So her 12th book really should be a masterpiece.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just like, why are you still making the same mistakes that you made in your first book series?
I think she's grown so wildly popular though that she maybe was just trying to ride this plane
Yeah.
instead of elevating herself.
And it felt like fan fiction.
It did, and I'm never gonna stop thinking about that now. It felt like fan fiction, and that's
fan fiction.
That's not a criticism. I think that's just an objective observation, or maybe you do mean it as a criticism.
I don't mean it as a criticism
but
because fan fiction is really fun.
Yeah,
and I
that's
love
what
it.
I mean to say. You can look at it very objectively and say, fan fiction is amazing, and I love reading it, and I'll never stop reading fan fiction. But there is a reason people read fan fiction when they don't feel like reading a traditional novel.
A novella. If if it had been like Cassandra Clare writes novellas and it's like the Red Scrolls or whatever, I go into that going, this is not, it's fluff. It's fluff published by the author, okay? If this book would have been marketed as like the Frost and Starlight novella, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, that book was not great either.
I didn't read that one.
But exactly, because it was like, okay, fine, it was a novella, I don't have a lot of hope for this.
I would think it's unnecessary content.
It's unnecessary content for a reason. It's just extra if you want it. This book was extra if I wanted it.
Yeah, that's exactly
it did no purpose for the bigger plot, and it should have been a novella that was extra if I wanted it, that focused on Nessa and Cassian and Nessa overcoming her trauma. It would have been a perfect novella, and I wouldn't have cared.
Yeah.
You could have left out everything else, it would have been fine.
You could have done this in a solid, 200 pages?
Yeah. But to market it as this big next chapter installment, and for it to not produce an end result, is irritating to me.
It should not have been part of ACOTAR.
No.
Because the situations in the plot of ACOTAR was resolved.
Yeah, it was done.
It was done. And you tried to bring in some of those key baddies, but that didn't really work out. Mm-hmm. This is a separate situation. You should have done like these are separate characters, separate situations.
And I feel like that should have been caught in the editing process. I feel like that should have been like a decided thing, like this does not make sense to continue the story. You either continue the story, or you write a novella with fluff that's like, ooh, this is a Cassian and Nessa story, and then if you want to read it, you can.
Yeah, this didn't have anything to do with Hybern.
Nothing happened.
This didn't have anything to do with the cold.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Relationships were forged. Romantic, friendships, family relationships fixed, whatever. It was really all about relationships. But that's what fluff is for.
That's what fluff, and it's like, okay, so at the end of A Court of Thorns and Roses, Feyre is defeated Amarantha, and Hybern is a threat, and Rhysand's a thing, and she has a contract out. There was things that were like unresolved, right?
Yes.
In this book, the same things that are unresolved are the same things that were left unresolved in ACOTAR.
Yeah.
There was no progression forward.
We're still like, hey, where are the queens?
The one's dead. Actually, they're all dead. They don't matter anymore. The queens are done.
But it's like minor things
and it
that
was
were unresolved. Where it was like they were unresolved because it didn't matter.
It just didn't make, like, the big baddie, he was there, but like served no purpose. So I think that's like my final stance on this, is it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah. And maybe this was published too early. Like maybe there was a rush to make it by the publication date and it just wasn't ready. It just didn't feel finished and polished and enough for me to go, I'm glad I bought that. Because I'm not.
Yeah. I'm happy I read it. I'd read it again. I would still recommend it to SJM fans. And like, it was a comfy read.
Yeah.
But the way I rushed through it was more because I wanted to be able to like talk about it with Lane, or talk about it in all these groups that I'm in, talk about it on the Discord, whatever, talk about it with the fandom. It had nothing to do with me wanting to eat it up.
Yeah.
So, I liked it, but I didn't love it. But I'm still mash trash.
I have to answer. I'm the boss now.
She's a boss. She's a busy lady. I respect it.
Okay. I agree. I just...
It's got me feeling a little stressed out.
I'm just bummed. Of course, I'm reading China right now, so I'm going to be raving about that one because I got my squeal moment and it makes sense, and I'm going to compare the two because in my brain I read them at the same time. So here we are. I'm sorry.
I'm reading King of Scars now.
King of Scars is so good. King of Scars give me all my squeal moments. I highlighted the crap out of that book. There's so many like little notations, and Zoya is a queen. A queen I stand.
I'm really trying to like read some new things. I say that like tentatively, I've been trying to push my bubble a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't like it, so I think I'm gonna read King of Scars.
King of Scars is so good, and I don't want to push my bubble
you know what? Read what's comfortable for you.
I'm like in a
Read what you
Discord book club, and they push my bubble enough. I'm like, they make me read things, and I'm like, oh, this was good, but can I go back to my new adult fantasy, please?
You know what? I guess that's what book club's for.
That's book,
Yeah.
book club. We do that to you, and I'm so sorry. Like, we're reading what we want to read, but we also push you to read things that you may or may not want to read. But if you do read A Court of Silver Flames, either tell me how much you hated it, or tell me how much you loved it, and then I'll feel bad for saying how much I did not like it.
Convince me to love it. Yeah,
Convince me.
I could be convinced. I'm on the precipice.
Did I miss a squeal moment? Did I just miss it? Tell
Maybe
me about
too
it.
quickly.
Maybe I just was so frustrated. Yeah, tell me your thoughts, because I had a lot of them. Also, if you've got roasty reviews, because I know they're out there, I know they are.
I do love a good roast.
Please. If it roast the book, I want to know about it. I want to know the worst one. And if you wrote a roasty review,
if it is just,
give 'em.
if you were just like, this is literally just a steaming pile of turds, I hated it, and you got on Goodreads and you wrote this much about how much you hated it, I think that's what we would love to read.
And if
I
you've got
don't
cool
disagree
fan
with it,
art,
probably.
like, I know that there's going to be some good fan art, and that might be my favorite part. Send them.
I
Drop
think
it.
there was already
Drop
this
it.
glorious fan art
Drop it.
of like minor moments in Akatar with Nesta and Cassian.
So good, so good.
Now we can see the real moments of Nessie and fan art.
Yeah, just
the
send me
training.
all your thoughts. Like, I wanna hear it all. Like, I just wanna see what other people think.
I want to fight about it. I want to like nitpick it. I want to break it down. Let's just like get into the nitty.
Sarah J. Maas, if
Don't-
you're watching this,
Don't ever watch this video, Sarah J. Maas. I feel like we'll hurt your feelings.
I still love you. I really
Yes,
do, and I'll
big
read
love.
anything you write because I'm trash. I'm mass trash.
That's
But
true.
I'm disappointed
Big
in this
facts.
one.
I'm still
And
buying your books.
if you could just give me Bryce. just give me Bryce. That'd be great. Thank you, Sarah J. Maas. Yay! I feel really bad. But I love you,
So that was our roast / review of a quart of Silver Flame.
thank you, and we'll be here for the next one, which is equally disturbing.
Oh yeah, we'll be reading
sorry.
nonfiction next time though.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that, and it'll be about the quarantine experience in China. So keep a lookout for that, and that's going to be really different and really interesting, and a good spin away.
We won't be able to roast it because we're not experts.
That's true.
Like we are.
I'm not a scientist,
I don't know things.
so you know I can barely read. So
I teach kids how to read, but we're talking like picture books. I
There
feel
we
like
go.
anything higher than that.
I memorized a lot of words thanks to Link.
That's all reading is.
That is true.
That's all reading is.
So if you also memorized a lot of words, join us next time when we read.
That sounds like that moment where you're like, were you a gifted kid in school? Tell us you were a gifted kid in school without telling us you were a gifted child in
I have
school.
anxiety now about whether or not I actually know how to read. That's
That's
how
a
I
gifted
know.
child moment. I just have anxiety. So, there's that.
Oh my god.
Okay, on that note.
This was fun, guys. We appreciate you. Thanks for watching, listening, learning, reading, and hanging out with us.
Yes, all of those things.
I'm Kayla.
I'm Lane.
This has been Parents Read the Darndest Things.
Bye.
Bye.